Hi there. I want to talk to you today about 9 habits that I have adopted in my 60s that have changed everything for me and changed the way I feel about myself and life in general. They've made me happier. Now, first of all, I want to put in a quick disclaimer. I'm human. I'm by no means perfect, and this is a work in progress. I am a work in progress, just as we all are. So I don't want you to feel that I'm putting myself up here on this pedestal, where I've got everything sorted. But I'd like to share with you, if I may, these 9 habits that have changed everything for me. And I'd love to know in the comments if any of them resonate with you and what habits you might have adopted that have made you happier as you move into your 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond. So the first one is that I have learned to say no. And I don't say sorry, no, I say no. Not always. Sometimes I want to say yes. I'm a great advocate for saying yes to so many things. But I say no when I want to say no. No to events that I don't want to go to. No to friendships that don't serve me, that don't make me feel good. I sometimes say no to running errands that I might have just slotted into my day seamlessly. When I don't want to do something, I have learned that no is a sentence on its own. And I've noticed that people don't treat me like a doormat anymore. And why would that be? I think it's because I don't act like a doormat. I don't think of myself as a doormat. And that has an effect on other people. Because people don't mean to take advantage of you, in my experience, but they do accidentally take advantage of you when you allow it. And what we allow becomes who we are. So the result of learning to protect my energy and to say no is that I have increased self-esteem. So I have more self-esteem as a result of saying no. Number 2, I won't be a referee. Now, you might relate to this, particularly if you have children, for example, or parents that squabble. I want people I love to get on. I want them to be happy. But trying to mediate between them only brought stress and conflict to my door, which I didn't need. So, a quick example. One of my children said, "Will you please have a word with another child because they keep using my shower gel?" And the penny dropped. And I just thought to myself, hang on. I said to them, why don't you say to them, stop using my shower gel? Why are you asking me to do that? That's crazy. You're grown adults. And the penny dropped. I can't be the mediator anymore. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. Not my responsibility. Leave the adults in your life to sort themselves out. You don't have to make them happy. You can't. But don't try, because all that does is stress you. The result of not being a referee is that I have less stress, which is a bonus. Number 3, I don't compare myself to others. Now, as I say, work in progress. It's not easy not to compare yourself to others, is it? It's a natural human response to see whether or not you're measuring up by some outside measure. But I realised I don't need to measure myself by other people's standards. I have my own values, my own standards, and so long as I meet those, I'm happy. And the result of that is that I have more confidence in my 60s than I've ever had in my life. Worth it, wouldn't you say? Let's go on to number 4. The 4th habit that I've developed in my 60s that make me so much happier is that I'm less judgmental. Now, I think it's human nature to judge, isn't it? We're kind of conditioned to do so in a way by reality TV. You think of talent shows and things like Love Island and all that kind of stuff. And social media as well. We are naturally judgmental. But I find that if I can just pull myself up short when I have a judgmental thought, it kind of resets me and it helps me to just be a little bit kinder, because we need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes before we know how their life is and what difficulties they might face, don't we? I think that we can be too quick to judge, whether that's on appearance or it's like when somebody becomes a parent, isn't it? You've always got other people that think that you could do it differently. It's like being a YouTuber. There's lots of people out there that think you should be doing it differently. But the result of trying to be less judgmental about other people is that I'm less judgmental about myself. And when you think about it, I don't know if you find this, but I've always found that the most judgmental people are the hardest on themselves. So I judge myself less harshly by making a conscious effort to be less judgmental of other people. Which leads on really to number 5. And that is that I've learnt to challenge my negative thoughts. I hadn't realised how often I allow negativity into my brain. I think we're kind of programmed to see the negative more than we do the positive. You know, you have 6 compliments and 1 criticism. What are you going to remember? It's usually the criticism, isn't it? I'm someone who tends to bear a grudge. I know that about myself. I don't forget anything. I'm a real elephant when it comes to remembering slights or, things that have hurt me. Maybe it's a legacy of more difficult times that these negative thoughts come into my head so often. So it's not just about stopping the negative thoughts coming out of your mouth, but actually to catch them while they're in your brain and to reframe. Now, this isn't toxic positivity. I've made a video about that before, and I'll put the little thumbnail up there for you to see, so you can look for that one if you're interested. Toxic positivity is when we deny all kinds of negative thoughts. I do feel them, I do acknowledge them, but the trick is not to dwell with those negative thoughts. And the result of controlling my own negativity is that I feel much happier. So it's worth the work that you have to put in. Number 6 on my list is to review my day every night with gratitude. Now, we've all heard about gratitude practices, and it all sounds a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit vague, a little bit woo perhaps, but it really works. So when I get into bed at night, some people do this in the morning, but I prefer to do it at the end of the day. I get into bed and my routine, my ritual, if you like, is to take 3 deep breaths just to calm myself before I prepare for sleep. And then after that, I think through the day. And I often find that a day that I think hasn't been a particularly good day, when I review it and I look for those little glimmers of happiness or good things that have happened, even of joy, there's always something in a day that you can latch onto and be grateful for. And I always feel better when I've done my daily review. And then I settle down to sleep. And I honestly think that I sleep better when I've gone through my gratitude list before I go to sleep at night. The result of reviewing my day with gratitude is that I'm happier. It's really simple. If you train yourself to look for positive things and to look for happiness, you get more of it. You feel happier. It's basic psychological principle. There's nothing woo about that. Worth a try, wouldn't you say? Do any of these habits resonate with you? Do let me know in the comments. I read everyone. I try to reply to everyone. And if you've got some to add, then please put them in there, because we can all help each other out here, can't we? Number 7 on my list is something that I know a lot of people really struggle to do, and that is I treat myself with kindness. I try to treat everyone with kindness, but I haven't always afforded myself that privilege. Every version of ourselves is still inside us, isn't it? You know, there might be a little girl in there who was fearful, who was very shy, who was told she was too sensitive. Maybe a little girl who went through trauma that a child shouldn't go through, a little girl that didn't feel loved. Personally, I find that my inner child will come out at times when I least expect her to appear. So I go out of my adult ego state and into this child state. And when I talked about my daughter emigrating to New Zealand, I think I mentioned this, that my reaction took me by surprise. And I actually said to my daughter, this isn't your mum, your adult mum reacting. This is a little girl who's afraid of abandonment and feels rejected that's reacting. And we worked through it together, which was really helpful. Luckily, I have an emotionally intelligent daughter who didn't take that too much to heart. So I take that little girl and I give her a hug and I tell her it's okay and that she's safe. And I treat her as I would treat one of my grandchildren. I rock her backwards and forwards and say, you're okay, you're okay. You know, you can even do this to yourself, havening, it's called, where you just treat yourself with more kindness. The young mother that I was at 22, who always felt that she was getting it wrong, who was afraid of messing up her kids because she was getting it wrong. You know, sometimes I will say to her, you're doing your best. You did the best you could. You loved your children. You didn't always get it right. You made some serious mistakes along the way, but it did turn out okay. And you have a good relationship with each of them. And she just needs to know, keep trying. The fact that you think about it, the fact that you worry that you're not a good mum means you're probably on the way to being a good mum. And I just give her that hug and that reassurance that I wish I'd had when I was that age. I wish I'd had a relationship with someone who could give me that, you know, a mother figure that could give me that. I was a long, long way away from my family. The result of consciously treating myself with kindness, I feel more loved. Number 8 is a really hard one for me. Maybe it is for you too. Because number 8 is a practice of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a funny thing, isn't it? You know, if somebody has wronged you in the past, if someone has hurt you, especially if they've, you know, hurt you deeply, broken your heart, or, you know, really sort of let you down, some people will say, well, that person did wrong, and why should I forgive them? And I understand that point of view, because you don't want to let somebody off the hook. That's what it feels like when you talk about forgiveness. But that isn't what it's about. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. Why should I allow someone that's hurt me in the past to continue to take up room in my head and my heart? Why should I allow them to continue to hurt me by continually ruminating on those things? So I choose to let things go as far as possible. As I say, I find this one really hard. And it isn't a linear thing. I don't think, oh, that person there in 1968 did this and, you know, now I forgive them. It doesn't mean I don't think about that incident in 1968 and sometimes feel anger or upset about what happened or that person. But, you know, I don't think anything actually happened in 1968. It's just this is just an arbitrary example. Most of all, the hardest thing of all, I think, and the most important thing when it comes to forgiveness, is that I try to forgive myself. I can't live the rest of my life with regrets. There are some things that you can put right, and there are other things that damage is done, and there's no way that you can ever put it right, and you can only hope that you are forgiven by the person that you might have hurt. For me, I don't see the point of beating myself up forever for mistakes that I've made in the past. And the result of practicing forgiveness, I feel softer. I don't mean in a weak way. I mean there's a softening in me that allows me to live my life with more grace. So I'd really recommend that you consider forgiveness and whether or not practicing that will help you. The final habit that I want to talk to you about today, these are practices really, aren't they? Something that you practice habitually that actually has a really profound effect on you and how you feel and on your life. But this one is a really difficult one, and it's definitely one that I have to work on now as much as I've ever had to work on it. And that's the practice of taking responsibility for myself. So I'm pretty good at taking responsibility for my own health. You know that if I eat the wrong things and I eat too much of them, that I put on weight. And then I find life more difficult because I'm dragging myself around as if walking through treacle. I know that if I don't move, I stiffen up and I'm going to be in pain. I take responsibility for that. I take responsibility for going to bed on time and getting plenty of rest. I also take responsibility for my own circumstances. And this is a hard one. In today's world where the cost of living has gone up and, we feel threatened on several fronts, that's not something we can affect, is it? So it's easy to blame the government or blame world events or blame the council or anybody else apart from ourselves. But this blame gets you nowhere. So I take responsibility for where I am at the moment. I did have a lot of trouble letting go of blaming my husband, for example, and not taking responsibility for my part in various things. It's been really difficult to take responsibility for my own actions and my own part in circumstances where we find ourselves now. But it's crucial. And by taking responsibility, you kind of take back control a little bit as well, that you can start to do something about it. I also take responsibility for my own behaviour, which follows on from that. It's my responsibility if I've been irritable to apologise or to explain why. I'm not a very angry person as a rule. I have quite a slow burn, but then it goes. But I take responsibility for dealing with my own emotions. And that's hard, but so necessary. And the result of taking responsibility for myself, well, that's that I feel more complete, more content. As I said at the beginning, disclaimer, I am not somebody who has this all down pat. I am not Saint Joe by any means. I slip up, I slip back. I find myself stuck in ways of behaving that don't serve me, that I thought that I'd cracked. But the important thing is that we bring these things into the light, because anything that you shine a light on and you become aware of, you can affect. And by using that self-awareness, you can make yourself happier. You can choose to let go of these things. You can choose to treat yourself with kindness. You can choose to take responsibility for yourself and all these practices that I've talked about today. If you've enjoyed what I've been talking about, please do pop a like on this and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me to get out there to other people who would appreciate this kind of content. And I wish you a marvellous week, and I really look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.